What's up, students? It's your boy PGT. Welcome back to class. Today I'll be going over everything you need to know about slants, as well as showing you how to make your very own culture slants. Culture slants are little media storage containers that will prolong the life of your mycelium culture. Slants can store healthy culture for up to a year or more. So if you have a favorite type of mushroom or isolation you're working with and you want to back it up for later use in the future, slants are the best way to go about doing this. Here's an example of a colonized slant that's over a year old now, actually. I decided to back up these cultures because I want to continuously have them available anytime I want to grow them out in the future. Some of you may be asking, well, what's the difference between slants and agar plates? And here I'll explain to you. Here is a beach mushroom plate that is a couple months old. As you can see, the mycelium has fully covered the entire surface area, and once it's done that, it's basically feeding through all of the nutrients in here, and it's trying to expand outwards outside of the dish. It's trying to reach for more nutrients or oxygen. If I were to keep this plate on for a few more months, this mycelium will probably start expanding outwards out of the paraffil. So what makes culture slants so suitable for long-term storage is there's a little pocket down here full of nutrients for the mycelium to feed off of. What the mycelium is going to do is it's going to colonize the surface area of the agar first, and once it's fully colonized the surface, it's going to start expanding outwards, and because there's a big pocket of nutrients down at the bottom, it will have a lot longer time for it to feed off of. Here you can see the colonized one has covered the surface area, and you can see behind here it started to kind of reach into the agar that's inside the tube, and this process slows down their growth and as well as keep it contained in here so that it's not constantly overgrowing. Now, with that said, let's get on with the video and I'll show you guys how to make your very own culture slants. So these are the ingredients that you're going to want to use for your culture slant productions. First thing you're going to need is a centrifuge tube. These are 15 milliliter centrifuge tubes. You can find these on Amazon. I'll have links down in the description for all the products that I use in this video. You can use bigger tubes if you want. Me personally, I like the 15 milliliter ones, so that's what I'll be showing you guys how to do. I have seen 30 milliliter ones, which is fine as well. I have a pint-sized jar here. This is to fit all of my culture slants in, and I have a plastic lid with these. This is what I'll be putting inside the pressure cooker to sterilize my slant in. You're also going to want a syringe. I have a 12 milliliter syringe. This is what you use to inject into your tubes. You're also going to want a needle tip for your syringes. I'm using 18 gauge needles here. These are blunt tip, but you can have normal pointy tips if you want, that's fine. You're going to want a little scale to measure out your ingredients. And I'm using malt extract agar today for these slants. You can also just use the PGT recipe agar if you want. Agar, obviously. Food coloring, this is completely optional. You really don't need this, but I like using it. I have a little jar here to kind of measure out the ingredients. Spoon, some popsicle sticks or craft sticks or coffee stir sticks. Now, these are completely optional. You don't need these. I like using them for my slants personally, but you don't really need them, just to give you a heads up. So the wooden sticks, we'll go over this. The wooden sticks are really optional. Many mycologists in the past believed that the wooden sticks provide extra nutrients for mycelium, and that would be correct in the case of storing woodlover cultures. However, mycelium would do just fine in the slants with just plain nutrient agar. I personally like using the sticks for another reason, and that's because it makes for removing mycelium easier in the long run. I can easily scrape mycelium off the sticks with a blade when I need to make transfer out of the slants, And when I deplete the mycelium culture into slants, I can just pull the entire stick out and stick that on a plate to get the culture growing. I use it more as a method of extracting mycelium rather than to provide additional nutrients if I'm not working with the woodlover species. So that's just sum up the process of the wooden sticks here. So what I do is I will measure out the wooden sticks, and I'll cut them here to fit them inside of the centrifuge tubes. So I cut these here to size, and when I drop them in the tube, you can see they fit perfectly in the tube. Now in the case of prepping these wooden sticks for the tubes, the original method that most people do is they will take these wooden tubes and they will boil them to hydrate them a little bit before they add them into the agar. And that's kind of what I'll be going over and showing you guys how to do today. So I am prepping for 24 culture slants. So I got 12 sticks I'll be cutting in half here, and that'll be enough to fill up these 24 culture slants. So what you want to do is take your sticks and get some boiling water, drop them in there. This process is to rehydrate the sticks. And let it boil for about 10-15 minutes. Alright, now while the sticks are boiling, I'm going to go ahead and prep the agar I need for today. Now I'm using these half pint jars here. They fill up to about 150 milliliters of liquid. You can see the line here. So doing the math, for each slant, I want to fill up about 6 milliliters of agar into each slant. And with 24 slants total, I need about 144 milliliters of agar. So the entire half pint jar is pretty much the amount of liquid I would need for filling up all of my slants. And the agar recipe I'm working off of consists of 15 grams of malt extract with 10 grams of agar to 500 milliliters of water. Since we're only going to need about 144 milliliters of water, we're going to just divide this up. For the recipe here, I'm going to need about 4.3 grams of malt extract, 2.8 grams of agar, and that'll be enough for 144 milliliters of solution here. There we go, we've got 4.3 grams of malt extract. Next we're going to need 2.8 grams of agar.
Dưới sự cho phép của Philly Golden Teacher, video được thuyết minh hoặc tạo phụ đề tiếng Việt bởi cương NpsLab.vn.
Got 2.8 grams of agar added in. In the meantime, our sticks are now done boiling. Go ahead and take them off the stove, and what we're going to do is drain water out. And once you drain the water out, you bring them over, and we're going to go ahead and start prepping our culture slants. So what you want to do is just add the boiled sticks into each culture slant. Once all your slants are filled up, I'm going to go ahead and add 150 milliliters of boiling water to my agar mixture here. You want hot water here, or boiling water. It will make the agar mixture much easier to stir and dissolve. Now here I'm going to be adding some blue food coloring. This part's completely optional. You don't need to do this. I realized afterwards that after I pressure cooked them, I noticed the evaporation caused some of the blue liquid to kind of come out into the jars and kind of created a little bit of a minor mess in the process. So going forward, I'm probably not going to be using food coloring anymore, but that's just a quick little lesson learned here from my experience. Take it from me, you don't need food coloring. I just wanted to make it look pretty, that's all. Alright, here comes the fun part. We'll get to the syringe. So open up your pack of syringe, open up your needle tip, Now we're going to basically just suck up this agar solution, and we're going to inject 6 milliliters into each culture slant. I'm just going to stir this solution up a little bit more just to get everything all evenly mixed up. And we'll load up our syringe. Be careful when you're working with this because it is hot liquid, so just be careful. And each culture slant is going to fill up to about 6 milliliters. And we'll put the cap on. Now when you put the cap onto these, I'm going to loosen them just a little bit. This will allow steam to get in there and sterilize everything during the pressure cook process. Now I'm going to go ahead and speed things up a little bit. I'm going to fill up the rest of these culture slants and we'll be right back. One thing I forgot to mention is I went ahead and added a little bit of water into each jar here at the bottom. You just want just a little bit of water. You don't want it to surpass the agar line. You just want it to fill up just a little bit. This water is going to help to add steam in here, and that'll help to steam sterilize the agar in the pressure cook process. Now what I'll do is I'll go through and just double check all of my culture slants and make sure that the caps on them is just slightly loose. This will allow the steam to enter into the slants, and that's what's going to be sterilizing our agar solution in here. So I'll go ahead and make sure all of my caps are all set, and we'll move on to the next part. Now we have our jars filled up. What you want to do is just keep the lids a little bit loose on top of these jars. This is also another process that allows steam to enter into the jars. So we're kind of double steaming our agar. We've got steam coming in from the pressure cooker water, and we got steam coming from the little water that's inside of the jars. So a little bit of an overkill maybe, but I like to be safe than sorry. So that's why I do this. Now we're going to go ahead and pressure cook for 25 minutes at 15 psi. After 25 minutes up, we'll turn off the heat and we'll let this depressurize on its own. It'll probably take maybe half an hour or so to depressurize on its own. But once it is, you're going to go ahead and open them up and take out your jars. It's going to be very hot, so be very careful. Use some gloves and protect yourselves. We do want to handle these while they're still hot, because once the agar cools down, it's going to solidify. So we're going to have to work pretty quick here. So once I take these out, I'll go ahead and seal up the jar. I'll tighten up the lids here. This is just to kind of help reduce any chance of contamination from getting in, because these are sterilized at the moment. Alright, so our final step is we're going to take our sterilized jars into our workspace. Working in front of a laminar flow hood, you can do the same process in a still air box. It's totally the same. So I'm going to take some sterile measures here. I'm going to sanitize everything down with 70% isopropyl alcohol, make sure everything is clean in our workspace. Here I'm using a little paper towel, and I like to keep this paper towel, I spray it down with isopropyl alcohol. This is my clean paper towel. We use this to wipe down anything that I feel that might need to be sterilized. So with the final process, we're going to go ahead and remove our culture slants from the jar. As you can see, I mentioned earlier about the food coloring. The dye got into the water inside of the jar here, and it kind of stained some of the culture slants. So I'm going to wipe down the excess dye on the outside of the culture slants with the isopropyl alcohol towel. But what you want to do is go ahead and remove your culture slants from the jar. What I'm going to do is tighten up the lids on the culture slants. It's just to ensure that nothing gets in there and that everything is sterile. And once I remove them out, we're going to go ahead and rest them on top of a tray of some sort. Now this process here is why they are called slants. what you're doing is you're creating a slant slope in the tube, and the slant slope is going to increase the surface area on the agar inside of the tube, and this is what the mycelium will colonize when you make transfers into the culture slants. So go ahead and repeat this process for all of your culture slants. Again, remember to tighten up the lids for them to make sure that everything inside of the jar is sterile, and that tightening up the lids will prevent anything from getting in there. And I'm going to let these cool down to room temperature in front of the laminar flow hood. You could do the same process inside of a steel air box. And it's very important that we do this because that extra surface space in your tube will allow the mycelium to fill out the tube more evenly. You have a lot more space to be able to work with on retrieving your mycelium culture when it comes time to making transfers from your slants. Alright, so here's the next day. We come back and our slants are fully cooled. This is the exact end product that you're going to end up with. And now with these slants, they're ready to use. And what I like to do to store them, if I'm not using them right away, is I'll put them back into these pint jars and I'll close the lid on them. I'll completely seal the lid and I'll store them at room temperature. And once I use them and get some colonized growth, I eventually will end up storing them inside a refrigerator. And they'll sit in the refrigerator for a year or more, and I would recommend making transfers out of them at least once a year just to kind of reinvigorate the mycelium and keep them going. With that said, that wraps up this culture slant class. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you want to get involved and get help with growing, I urge you to join our Discord community server. If you wish to support me, you can do so through Patreon or my merch shop. I want to send a big shout out to all my Patreon members. I wouldn't be able to continue doing this if it weren't for you guys. Patreon members get access to exclusive content not available on YouTube. I'll have links to everything in the description below. With that said, I wish you all much love, and I'll see you guys in the next class. Peace out.